Sairam Joy, thank you for that very kind introduction, Sairam. I offer my humble pranams at the lotus feet of my beloved Swami, my dearest Lord. Please speak through me, share your love that you shared with me to all. Sairam. Sairam, everyone. I wish I could see everyone's face, but I'm sure everyone is having a fantastic time of the Thanksgiving. I hope everyone is healthy and well. So in that introduction, it gave a brief description of my coming to Swami. And yes, I spent 5 years living with Swami from 1992 to 1997. And I first want to say that all the experiences that I had, all the time that I had, it's only because of Swami's grace. And really those 5 years I spent with Swami was Swami putting me in intensive care. I needed a lot of work to put me back on the path. It wasn't that I was a rambunctious or crazy person before, but rather I had a heart that was searching. I had a heart that was looking, but I had, and still do, I hopefully less, I had a lot of ego, a lot of spiritual pride, and thinking that I'm going to figure out how to fix this hole in my heart, this emptiness that I felt. Because that emptiness was making me look everywhere else. I was looking through all the worldly desires, getting more of this, more relationships, more things. And that led me to come to Swami. And for me, it really became on March 4th, 1992. I really came to the end of my journey. They say that people who have near-death experiences, when they come back, they say that when they cross to the other side, they experience this love that they've never experienced before, and a reality that's more of a reality than what we see here and what we experience here every day. And Swami teaches us that this reality that we see is not the true reality. There is a unity in this diversity that is not seen to us because we're so involved with being this body, thinking we're the mind, and we're not. And in that first interview that Swami called me into that morning, I really got to the end of myself. And that was the day that I got to know who my true self is, and I didn't need to physically die for it, but I did have to spiritually die and become reborn. So in that first interview, when Swami stepped in, before that, I was a doubting Thomas still. I still did not know who Swami is. I was still thinking that I need to think my way to get to God. But the moment Swami stepped in that interview, my mind had receded in the back. And just like that, I was sitting in the back of the interview, looking at Swami with my mouth in a huge smile. And what I experienced step in the room wasn't what you see. You see here this beautiful form behind me. But what I was experiencing was I came to the end of the road. I found what I was looking for. I found the feeling of home. And more than that, I knew this. I've as if I've known this for eternity, what this is. And my heart was just boiling over with so much love. And Swami asked me in that interview, "What do you want?" And I said, to my surprise, "All I want is you." And that made Swami very happy. And that was the beginning of my huge transformation in my spiritual journey, and what led me to go from a 6-month stay in India to 5 years. And the lessons began. It was a beautiful journey of Swami first teaching me one of the most important things in the spiritual journey is he asked me, how do you get to God in that first interview? And I couldn't answer. And he says, follow the 3 Ps, patience, perseverance, and purity. And so how did Swami teach me these? Well, through many, many lessons. And it was more than really just reading Swami's teachings. It was the daily life that we go through, not just there in India, but here when we live it. The daily things that happen to us is the playground for the Lord to teach us everything. So for me, the first thing that Swami taught was the first step is to become pure. How do you become pure? Swami's teaching that you need to do selfless activities. So Swami assigned my mother and myself to do seva, to work in the Western Canteen, to run it. We ran it for almost 4 years. And through that selfless service, I learned that the greatest gift that you can do is to make others happy, to sacrifice your wants and your needs for the sake of others, and to do that with love. The days when you go in the morning very early, it was like 4:00 in the morning, we would wake up and go down and prepare, boil the milk, start making the porridge. And we did this, and then we do service until 9 in the evening with maybe an hour and a half or so break to rest. And we did this for many years. And in that, Swami gave many opportunities to hear his message and to interact with him. Swami, in the beginning, stole my heart, literally. During the darshans, Swami would come and speak to me and ask me things. And what I want to say here is, before I came to Swami, I watched a movie which was about Jesus's life. And I thought I was born 2,000 years too late. I thought that I missed this opportunity. And I realized once after my first interview that this opportunity, Swami had put me into his story, that this story that Jesus had, which was, as Swami said, Jesus went from being a servant to then realizing that he's not just a servant, but that he's the Son of God. And when he realized he's the Son of God, and it continued, he eventually realized, I and my Father are one. So one day when I was working in the canteen, and my mother, we were in Vrindavan, Swami was giving darshan out near the tree where he was giving darshan there. And we were left inside preparing for the afternoon dinner. And to our surprise, Swami veered away from giving darshan and came into the canteen. And he walks in, and my mother was so surprised, and she was like, I hope the floor is clean. And she's wiping the floor and getting it ready. And Swami walks in, and the first thing he says, where's my son? And he was calling me his son in interviews. And so I would say, Swami, I'm here. And Swami, as if I don't exist, went to my mother and asked, where's my son? And again, I said, Swami, I'm here. And he started to walk through the canteen, and then he would go and look into the ladies' side and say, where's my son? And I felt as if I had been absolutely abandoned. It was a feeling, my gosh, I felt like the Lord had turned away from me, literally. And then Swami even went over to the refrigerator, opened the refrigerator, and asked inside the refrigerator, where's my son? And my mother is laughing, and she knows what Swami is doing. And what was happening in me, my yearning, my pining for Swami just grew and grew. And Swami even turned and looked at me, but was looking right through me. And no one can do this except for an avatar. And he asked, "Where is my son?" And finally, I fell at his feet, and Swami looked down at me and said, "Oh, there you are." And my heart just melted and melted. And then Swami looked over into the ladies' canteen side and said, pointed to a chair over next, over in the ladies' side, and said, "Who's sitting in that chair?" And I said, "Swami." I couldn't answer because there's no one sitting there. And he says, "Who's sitting in that chair?" And then Swami turns and he puts his finger on my heart. And he says, "Who's sitting in that chair? Is it Swami? Is it wife? Is it Swami?" And Swami says, "This is not a musical chair. This is not a musical chair." And the lesson I was learning that day was Swami had taught me that, yes, a wife also means a physical wife, but wife has another meaning sometimes he uses, and sometimes it's the worldly thoughts, it's the desires, it's the wants and things that we want outside. And there is only one place, one thing that we can truly desire, and that is to have the Lord sit in our heart. The next thing that Swami did was he took us into the canteen, and Swami started asking the price of the various vegetables, and and he started asking the price of the vegetables. And my mother was giving answers. "Oh, this is 5 rupees a kilo. This is 10 rupees a kilo." And Swami he cares about the details of everything. And then because we were overseas devotees and we would go shopping, Swami would say to us, "Be careful because they'll cheat you, because you're a foreigner. They'll cheat you. Be careful. Don't let them charge too much." And finally, Swami had asked all these questions about how much the price is. And then Swami standing in the middle of this small room, which is the vegetable room. And my mother's towards the door. And so Swami was talking to my mother. And then Swami turned towards me, and he put his finger on my heart. And he asked my mother, "How much is this worth?" In the whole room, the atmosphere in the room totally changed. This powerful feeling came over. My legs started shaking. And Swami said, "It's worth millions and millions and millions." And we were, both of us, about to just pass out. And what was going through my mind when Swami said this, which wasn't in my thoughts, was Swami's been working on not just me, he's working on all of us. The value of our heart. This is him, the self, the true self resides in your heart. He sits there, and he's been working on this thing that we call this human being, this individual soul, for thousands of lives, like a diamond, cutting it, polishing it, making sure that it becomes more and more brilliant. And it's priceless. It's priceless. And so beautiful. Swami took us, because we were about to just pass out from the powerful feeling. He took us out, and he stood in another doorway. And I've never touched Swami's feet before that. And I never touched his feet before. And I actually never felt the desire, but we both fell at Swami's feet. And Swami just said, "Very lucky day, very lucky day. Only mother and son, because we're only there." And he says, "Do Padma Namaskar." And we both fell at Swami's feet. And again, this story I'm telling, I'm not special. This is all our stories. This story belongs to all of us. We're so precious, and we have to have humility in front of the Lord, falling at his feet and surrender. And it's so easy to get distracted and move away from that. You know, one of the questions that a lot of people ask, especially now that Swami isn't in his form, is what are we to do now? He's not in his form. Should we continue our devotion? Should we go away from the form? Should we go within? What does that mean? Are we now to become we had bhakti devotion. Now should we go to jnana yoga? What should we do? And Swami took me through this lesson as well, something that was very relatable to now. So while I was there for that 5 years, Swami one day asked me to stop working in the canteen. So I stopped, and I thought, at that time I had this desire. Again, here are the desires. Who's in this heart? Who's sitting in this heart? And I had the desire to want to read the Vedanta, want to read more about Advaita, wanted to, because I had this incredible desire to really get to the end of the road, to go back to where I was in that first interview. And I thought that if I just read enough, if I just study enough, if I just inquire enough, I'm going to be able to get there faster. And little did I know Swami's told my mother in an interview, and I was there, that this boy has no patience, too young. Well, yeah. So I started to read these books and really started to feel as if I'm getting closer and closer. That my ego, I identify my ego, identify the difference between the real and the not real, all of this. And and Swami was ignoring me during this time. He actually, for the first 6 months I was there, I had 9 interviews, a lot of attention. And then for 3.5 years, practically nothing after that. So I felt like I was on my own here. So I thought I would start communicating through Swami. I heard people do chits or they flip a coin. So I started flipping a coin. And this is Swami's Maya, and this is Swami's power. I would flip this coin, and I can ask the same question, spiritual question, multiple times, and it will always fall on its head, saying yes if it's always yes, or no if it's no. And so I started going down this road of seeing that everything is Maya, and that the only reality is my awareness, my consciousness. And I didn't know during this time that I had forgotten something super important. And I didn't realize it until on a day that I thought that I literally was going to become self-realized, that was the day that Swami called me in for an interview. And it was a dark, cloudy day. And it was exactly how I was inside too, meaning the love that I had acquired, that I transformed me, the love that I had for Swami had literally vanished. It had gone because I was so much into my head, so much into going down this road. And I ended up, Swami calling me for an interview. And I was like, why do I need an interview? I know I'm God. Why do I need an interview? Anyway, I go in for the interview, and Swami is reflecting exactly what's inside of me. And Swami, I get in, and when we were in the general interview room, Swami was smiling and happy and loving with everyone. But every time he turned to me, it was like poker face, nothing. And it was exactly how I was feeling towards the Lord, towards the heart that I should have cherished. And he took me in for the private interview, and he asked me, he asked me, "Who are you?" And all this time, I'm thinking I'm God. Everything is Maya. Even Swami, everything is Maya. And then Swami says, I said to Swami, "Swami, I am God and you are Maya." And Swami, as he was trying to sit down, as was asked this question, he couldn't, because he said, "No, no, 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 no. I am God and you are my son." And I argued with him and I said, "No, Swami, I am God and you are Maya." And then Swami then asks, "Where is God?" And I said, "God is everywhere." And this I got right. And Swami sits down and he asks me, "Where's your mother?" And I said, "Swami, she's working in the canteen." And Swami says, "Why aren't you working in the canteen?" And now I'm so confused, so wondering, why am I having this interview? Why is he asking this? He's the one who told me, not to work in the canteen. And I was just super confused. And Swami asked me again, and then Swami asked me again, "Where is God? Where is God?" And I said, "Everywhere." And Swami says, "Good, good." And then he twists my cheek like this. And you may see that, here are people being patted, or you see this. This isn't just like, doing a nice thing that a grandparent will do to a grandchild. Because the moment he did this to me, I literally felt this whole, I think it was 7 months of going down this super, super, cold, analytical, book stuff and inquiry stuff. At least for me, what happened was it started to crumble. I felt the cracks. That bliss that I thought I felt from going down that way, I started to realize was nothing compared to the love that I had originally felt with Swami. And Swami tells me to get up and go. The interview's over. I end up talking with my mother, and I tell her I had an interview after this, and she couldn't believe it because I didn't really feel like I had an interview. I was confused. So anyway, I told the whole story to my mother about how I am God, everything is illusion, even you, mother, everything is illusion, and see how powerful the mind is, see how powerful this craziness, this thing called the mind. My mother almost believed me. And she finally said to me, "No, I don't believe you." And I said, "Why?" She says, "Because I feel no love in you." And that was like the last stake in my heart. And I went out for a long walk until it was curfew. It was night. And I suddenly realized I had lost the most important thing, and that is divine love. And I went back to my room and I prayed to Swami, "Swami, I will never read again. I don't need all that kind of stuff. I just want to be able to love you again, to have a relationship with you again, to feel your hand take me." And I just fully surrendered. And all I said, "I don't care if you kick me out of the ashram, if you never speak to me again, just let me love you again." And so I went to bed and woke up next morning and went to darshan. And this day the clouds were parting, and I just kept praying. And when Swami stepped out and the darshan music began, I felt that love come back and tears went down my eyes. And I realized how much I was about to throw away. Now, 2 years later, finally Swami calls my mother and I for an interview. He takes us in privately. And the first thing that Swami says to my mother as we're sitting down, "This boy is crazy. He said he's God and I am Maya. he's crazy. And my mother is like smiling and stuff. And then I'm tugging on Swami's arm. Swami, I don't believe that anymore. And Swami goes, shh, shh, shh. And he's telling my mother, this boy is crazy. And I said, Swami, I don't think like that. I don't think like that anymore. And Swami turns and he says to me, he says, and then my mother says, thank you for saving him. And then Swami turns to me and he says, yes, I saved him again. And then he looks in my eyes and he says something very important. He says, until you fully realize it, don't say it. And what did he mean by that? It's fine for us to know that we are God. Swami tells us we're God. Leave that alone. Let it be. The most important thing is to foster divine love within us and to walk that road, because what love does is it reduces the ego, reduces your pride, and most importantly, love is what unites us. I think I must relate one more story that's very powerful in this topic, and that is when this was during the first 6 months that I was there. My devotion for Swami was so strong, and Swami had to go and leave and go somewhere for a few days. And those few days, I felt like if I don't see him, what's going to happen to me? I was just pining for him. And when he came back, I was able to sit first row, and Swami came out from the Purna Chandra where he was staying at the time. And as he came out, the darshan music started. This incredible pining and love that I was feeling, that feeling just started to amplify. And he came every step as he was coming from the ladies' side, coming over to the men's side, I just felt this incredible, the love that one feels for Swami just gets stronger and stronger. And it was welling up. And each time as he got closer, I thought, it can't get any stronger than this. Until finally he was coming right around and coming towards us where I was sitting. And he was maybe 5 feet away. And as I said, every step that he was taking, this love was growing more and more. And it was logarithmic. It's just taking off. And finally, he got right next to me, and this feeling of love went to infinity. Literally, my eyes closed, and I was no longer in my body. I was no longer having a sense of Leslie. What I felt was I was witnessing that Leslie, which is this mind, was like a cloth. And the thoughts, the thing that makes who I am, my mind, like a thread, started being pulled out. And I felt this rush of going towards the end of myself. And finally, the last thread was about to be pulled. And in front of me, I knew that there was a veil. And if this last thread were to be removed, I would be gone. Leslie, who I am, would no longer be there. And all there would be is this infinite love that was enveloping me, that I was falling into, that I was merging into. And what happens? Next to me was a gentleman who worked with me in the canteen. And Swami put me together with him to work out some karma, because we had some rubbings and stuff. And a bad thought came in my mind about this man right then at the last moment. In that moment, all the threads came back together, and I came back into myself, into this individuality. I opened my eyes, and what felt like an eternity, that experience, Swami was just maybe two steps away. And as this subsided, a deep, deep understanding came to me, a deep lesson. What is the road to God? It's not with the mind. The mind is what needs to be pulled apart, as Swami says. The threads need to be removed. How? Not with the mind, but with love. Love is what took it all out. To walk with love is what took me to that end of that road. But what stopped me was the lack of purity. Swami says patience, got to learn patience, perseverance, don't stop. Please, no one, don't stop, no matter. Don't let go of Swami's hand. Don't go running around for other teachers. We have the avatar himself who came to this world in a physical form, has taught us so much and is with us every single day. Instill him in your heart. Never let go. Follow his fragrance and share his love with everyone. Be kind and be good. Love all, serve all. Sai Ram.